Okay. Hello and welcome to our team presentation number 1. The project we're working on is called Kid Academy. Our group members are Robbie, Michael, Rudy, and Andrew. And just a heads up, we're all here in a group chat, but Rudy's having some technical difficulties with his internet connection. And so while he is here in spirit, he won't be able to speak to his code. So we'll help out and discuss that stuff. So the first thing we want to talk about are these 7 steps to develop a function. The first step is to clearly define the problem. In this instance, the function we're going to be talking about is the volume of a triangular prism. I broke it down into 2 parts here, the area and then the volume after that for easier usability in the code, and we'll show you that later on. The second step is to create a test matrix. If you see off to the right, you can see that this is our test matrix for the volume of a triangular prism. We've got the inputs and the outputs. Our inputs are base, length, and height. You can see we have valid cases, invalid cases, and boundary cases, and also the message that would happen if you were to input those and what it should calculate out to. Step 3 is to outline a solution. In this step, we create pseudocode. So we start there at the beginning. We check for invalid values. Then we do our body statements, which is really our formula. And we go to return the outputs, which is the volume. In step 4, we test our algorithm. That's when we use our JUnit test. And this part Robbie will discuss. I'm going to switch over to him real quick, and he can talk about it.
Thank you, Michael. So the purpose of the JUnit test is just to make sure that our algorithm is performing correctly. So I've gone ahead and pulled up our mathcontroltest.java class, and here is our test calc volume triangle prism. We've gone ahead and initialized our variables with our test matrix information, and we've gone ahead and passed that to our function. As you can tell here, I've actually called the math control class and initiated a new variable where I am passing in the result. And then I'm going to go ahead and compare that using our asserts equal function, comparing that to what our assumed or expected result is and what the actual result is. And in this case, if it's successful, our unit testing will go ahead and print out the word success, or our unit testing would output an error message so that we could continue to troubleshoot and determine how to fix the error. So as you can see here, we've gone ahead and done this for all of our functions. And I'm going to pass it over now to Andrew to go ahead and speak to each of these functions in more detail.
Perfect. So we've taken the pseudocode, and at this point we're now converting it into an actual code. And so we've got, do you want to share my screen, or do I just click on my screen here?
Nope, I clicked on you already.
Okay. All right, so we've got this calculate the volume of a triangle, and so we just pass in the values of the base, the length, and the height. And then the first step of the function is to check for invalid values. And so any value 0 or greater is valid. And so it checks if it's less than 0, then it will return a error. Otherwise, it will continue on to calculate the volume by first calculating the area, and then it will calculate the volume. And once that's done, it will return the volume back to the function. And then these other functions, pretty much similar to that. We just converted the pseudocode in the same process, walked through the pseudocode and converted it into actual code.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah.
So I'll go over, continue on with our little slideshow here. And this is what Andrew actually just talked about, the translating all into code. And you know, for brevity's sake, we all did our algorithms, but we didn't show it all in there. And then step 6 is next. We created and ran test cases. So in this step, we actually took our test matrices, and we input these values and ran them through by hand to make sure our code was functioning as our test matrix said it should. And then the final step is step 7, and that's to deploy it to the repository. And here's my awesome screen grab of NetBeans and us pushing it all to Git, and that's how you were able to see all the different code we had. And so now we were going to go in and discuss individually some of the code that we have actually created in our different views and our different controls and whatnot. And I'll hand that back over to Robbie to discuss some of that.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and show my geometry class room view. So as the user is in the game, they do kind of follow a series of menus, and eventually they're going to land on this geometry class. And as part of the geometry class, we are going to ask the user to answer a math question. So I've gone ahead and I've created my class, and it's called geometry class room view, and I've have my constructor. And within my constructor, I've just thrown up just some system text, very basic, just informational. I've gone ahead and then now my display geometry question, this is actually how the previous menu links to this class. And in so doing, again, I'm just showing up some putting up some text. And then I'm actually calling the get input. So I need to get the inputs from the user. So I've actually, because these are doubles, I've just passed in some zeros. And then now as you can see here, here's my my function signature. It's a private, it is void, so it's not returning any values. I do create some new variables as part of this, and they're all doubles, and these all correlate with different map points to calculate the distance. And then within that class, I am calling my scanner, which is going to get my input from the user. And I'm actually setting a Boolean value as false. And I'm now calling a while function or a while loop that basically just checks to see if that function or that variable is still true. And anytime that the user puts in a value that I don't like, then it's going to revert that and then kick them out and make them do it again. And as you can see here, I have a printout to the user. I'm going to call out every single variable I need, as well as what the user calculates the distance to be. And in so doing, here's my if statements just to make sure that there's a valid value, and in this case, it's just making sure it's not equal to 0. And if there's any issues there, it will break out and re-loop through again. Otherwise, it's going to pass all the values that the user inputted into the do action function. And again, kind of the same process. I have a Boolean value here, and I'm passing in each of those inputted values to the do action. And here's where I actually need to call my math control to do the actual calculation. So here I've called my math control, and I'm calling my calc distance 2 points function. And I'm actually returning the value into a new variable called compare distance. And I'm actually just doing a quick rounding exercise to make sure, instead of having the user do, any varying number of numbers after the decimal point, I've gone ahead and just said, only give me 2. So I'm rounding that answer down, and then I'm doing a quick compare in an if statement. So if it's equal, if the user inputted value is equal to the calculated value, it will spit out this text and eventually we'll award the user 35 points. It's still something we're working on, but for right now, that's just some blank text or functionality that's forthcoming. If it's incorrect, it will actually display the result, the calculated result, as well as their response, and it'll actually then return back to the main menu. And if the user wants to go back and retake the class, they can. So I'm going to go ahead and just quickly just run through this here. So bear with me. I'm going to go into my math building, and as we saw here, this is the geometry class. So if I go ahead and do that, as you can see, here's my geometry classroom. Here's my question, and then I'm going to go ahead and ask for some inputs. So in this case, I'm going to just quickly go through this here. I'm going to do a correct answer. Now, if I scroll up here, you can see my answer was successful, and I've been awarded 35 points. I quickly just want to show a wrong answer so that you can see that things are, so I'm going to do 14.15, for instance. And I can see my answer was incorrect. Try again. Your answer was 14.5, but the correct answer was 14.4. So the system is working as designed, and as we grow this out, we'll work it in so it can calculate the points and so forth. So that is it for mine. So I'll go ahead and pass it back to Michael and go from there.
All right, I will explain mine. Give me a second. Let me pull it up. All right. Mine is I handled the question and answer view. Some of this functionality we're still working on. We're still doing a bit of work in the control layer, and so some of this is hard-coded values, but these will get switched over to pull data from the control layer here pretty soon. So as you can see here, my setup is actually fairly similar to Robbie. I have my my constructor. It has my menu in here, and this actually pulls the information for my questions from here. Like I said earlier, will be pulled out. And then here, essentially, I do the same thing. While this is true, it will go through and display this and until it's done. And at the end, it will call my do action function with the proper menu option. Here, we are figuring out, let's see, if my input is valid. So you have to make sure that the value you put in is not blank. And then it'll return the choice and send it over to this guy. This is my actual menu. And in here, we have the different cases. If you enter 1, it'll set the answer to 1 and send it to the validate answer function with the 1, which is your actual entry. And then it does it so forth for 2, 3, and 4. And then here what happens is this is the actual validate answer. So it'll take the answer created here and it will send it to the answer control. The answer control is actually something that I'm working on right now. It's going to take some work to figure out what classroom people are in and then pick questions and stuff for them and stuff like that, and then compare the answers. And so we'll be getting that done here shortly, but it essentially sends the answer in. Currently it responds null, but I'll get that functioning soon. And then it displays the answer view, and it creates the new answer class and everything like that, and that is here. So this is somewhat similar. This stuff again will be coming from the answer control, but currently it says it's correct. But I create all of the strings here and pass it, refer to them in this spot to create the menu. And this follows the same process that I had done previously. But when you get down to the bottom, you're able to select options. I'm sorry, I forgot to explain this. So this says, hey, this is what your answer is. You know, if it's correct or not correct, it tells you, you know, what your new score is, and it'll allow you to ask another question or go to a different location. Validates answers, and then these are different cases. So it'll actually call the question view, which is what we just saw, which says, hey, you want to know another question? Or it'll send you back to the location view, which asks if you want to you know, go to a different spot. Say you're leaving the you know, biology room and you want to go to a math room, right? And then there are the specific functions for those. So I am going to hit play here real quick and pull up this thing here. So my name is Michael. It says welcome to the game, Michael. And I've put a little shortcut here in our main menu control that allows me to, main menu view that allows me to just go directly to the question view from go to school. So I'm going to hit 1 and enter, and it says, all right, cool. Select an answer by choosing the corresponding numbers. I asked the question, what is 2 plus 2? And I have been doing math for a while, so it's 4. It says that answer is correct, and then allows me to either ask another question or go to a different location. In this case, I'm going to go to a different location, and you can see that it pulls up the location menu, and I can say I want to go to the science building. It'll take me there and show me all that stuff. So that's all functioning, notwithstanding the pulling the questions out from the question and answer control. So I'm going to quit out here, quit Q, and see it'll take me through all the different buildings. back to the menus until my build is successful and ends. So now I'm going to bounce back over to, to Andrew here, and he can explain, I believe, some model stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to go back kind of to the beginning, where we first kind of set up our program. I'll talk specifically about the player class, which is part of the model. And these are pretty simple. Basically, you're just setting up storage points, kind of, for the object, for the player object. And so we're initiating some variables for the attributes. You can see we've got name, a best score, gender, and an age. And then we set some getter and setter functions. And basically that's just a way to read and write to this class or to a specific object created by this class. And that pretty much establishes these model classes establish kind of the base for the rest of the program. And I don't, you guys might have to help me out here. I was looking at this code. I remember it was inserted automatically, generated. I was trying to remember what exactly it does. You guys remember what this code down here does?
I do believe that creates a string with just the actual values that are stored within the object itself.
Okay, so this one creates a string of all the values.
Yeah, it's concatenating the whole thing.
Okay. But well, that's the basics of a model class.
Cool. Thanks, Andrew. And hey, Robbie, are you familiar with Rudy's, sorry to throw you under the bus live, are you familiar with Rudy's high score menu view?
Sure, yeah, I am actually.
To kind of walk through. Oh, perfect, awesome. I'm going to switch to your screen then, and would you mind just kind of briefly walking us through that?
Yeah, so just real quick, this is the high score menu. This is just accessed through the main menu. The idea is to show the top 5 player scores. The user then would select that score and get more information. So again, just the same process. We have our class name. Here is our constructor. We've created a menu text, if you will, and shown right here. And then via the main menu, it's called through the display high score menu view. This does a quick check just to make sure that the user has not selected quit, and then passes through to the do action, whichever selection they've picked, and then that gets pushed down. The get menu actually is the one that collects the data through the scanner function that we kind of talked about earlier, and then that gets passed down to the do action, which then has a quick switch statement just to determine which one they selected, and then we've just gone ahead and created stub functions for each of those, just because we don't have any further functionality spelled out yet for that. And this actually does get called, and I'm just going to quickly just jump over to the main menu just so you have a quick understanding of how this gets there. If I just scroll down to the methods that are created here at the bottom, we've gone ahead and just via that we've pushed things different directions. So in this case, here's a help menu, high score menu. That's how those are accessed. So if I quickly just run a test here again, Robbie, if I select the high score menu by selecting 5, that brings up the high score menu with each one of those. And as you can see, if I select 1, you can see right here my stub function is called. And if I hit quit, it will jump me back to the main menu. So that's just a quick overrun of the high score menu view. So back to you, Michael.
Awesome. So I think we've actually gone through everybody's code now and wrapping it up. So we hope that next time we'll be able to play a little bit more Kid Academy. And thanks for joining us, and we'll see you later.